Sometimes the setting of an Assassin's Creed game may have potential across multiple eras in history, allowing for a location to be revisited multiple times across the franchise, be it DLC expansions, entirely new games, or separate sections within the game itself, as is the case today with a hidden character in Assassin's Creed Syndicate that Ubisoft didn't want you to know about. Now, we know from the supposed leaks coming out at the moment that Assassin's Creed is getting a heavy focus from Ubisoft as a major franchise for them going forward, and is capitalising a lot on the smaller mechanics from previous games and expanding them into their own standalone titles. Examples of this include the co-op in Unity, which is supposedly becoming a PvE standalone game featuring assassins from across the franchise as playable characters, and also, to a lesser extent, the ship mechanics from Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag may take the form of Skull and Bones, should that game ever become playable enough to release. Now, one of the projects Ubisoft has officially announced is Assassin's Creed Infinity, which will feature multiple Assassin's Creed games on one single hub, supposedly similar to having your own Animus and being able to hop into different periods seamlessly without needing to swap discs. Now, this concept may have already been attempted before in the 8th generation console games Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which, while being on a much smaller scale, may now show the humble beginnings of what could become a massive upcoming title. Let's start at the beginning with Assassin's Creed Unity. Unity was a bold reinvention of the Assassin's Creed franchise, featuring new concepts and ideas, like a defined stealth system with missions allowing greater freedom and complex level design not seen before in the franchise, to advanced customization and the ability to express yourself when playing with friends, using a cooperative experience. I find Unity to be one of those games where they threw everything at the wall just to see what sticks, and one of those concepts that certainly did stick was the Helix Rift missions. Where the world of Paris was missing iconic landmarks like the Eiffel Tower due to the time, what if the Animus glitched out and sent the player temporarily into a linear but completely new time period to better show the French culture throughout history, whilst being grounded in the universe under the guise of an Animus mishap? Ubisoft was so confident in this idea that they kept it front and centre, placing multiple Helix Rift missions across the course of Unity's campaign, and even kept arguably the most iconic outfit in the franchise, Altair's, behind these Helix Rift missions as an unlockable. These served as a brief distraction to keep fans happy during the story, with fan service like a World War II setting, something highly requested at the time, and also allowing a tick box to be checked, as now we could climb the Eiffel Tower, which fans would have been sorely disappointed to have seen absent from a game set in France. The Helix missions would only feature your customizable version of Arno, and not feature any unique dialogue, implying that Arno was simply used as your avatar for you to get back to the correct period and resync. Whilst you explored 3 unique settings in history, they were just a passing glance, and were never given any depth or unique characters to make them stand out. But that all changed with Assassin's Creed Syndicate the following year. Syndicate set out to do what it had for all the other mechanics in the game, and attempted to focus and refine what Unity had given us. This led to the chopping down of 3 time periods to just 1, but greatly expanding this rift into its own small but dense free roam environment, with characters and storylines that fleshed out the period into a corner of AC Syndicate that proved multiple periods in a single game could in fact be possible. When free roaming the open world of Victorian London as either Jacob or Evie Frye, you may notice a mysterious Animus glitch located at the bottom of the Thames River. This was never hinted at or pointed to during the main story, and many players may have missed out on this entirely, but interacting with this Animus glitch leads to this.
Hello. In the past, you hunt for one of my artifacts, but I come to you today to speak of the future. Follow Lydia Frye. She will lead you to me.
Here we begin the Darkest Hour chain of missions, inside a brand new time period, World War I London. Reusing assets from the 1868 counterpart, but with brand new assets and gameplay mechanics that define the time period. We join our protagonist, Lydia Frye, as she intercepts a Templar transmission. Lydia Frye is a descendant of Jacob Frye and... You know what, let's just say Jacob Frye.
That little girl is a child. I don't want to see you sniffing around her anymore this afternoon. Do you understand?
Yes.
We know very limited information about her through the Animus database, but due to her parents being away on missions, Lydia was practically raised by her granddad and great-auntie Jacob and Evie Frye, and thus combines their best traits into one. She is practical and methodical, but can improvise on the spot. Her gameplay is identical to both Frye twins, but has her own unique personality and traits. She seems to be headstrong and confident, never flinching in the face of a gun. However, unlike the Frye twins, she speaks with a more received pronunciation.
Stop right there!
That's not very polite.
Which could imply that the Frye twins were able to give her a good education, with the wealth they accumulated. Lydia's outfit is appropriate to the time, using green, gold and black as a colour scheme to show off the black and gold motifs which was used by the assassins of the time, whilst also having green as a sign of camouflage, which soldiers would wear themselves to blend in. Much like Evie, her outfit appears as a dress that has been modified for practicality, and it doesn't look ridiculous when seen next to other characters. However, unlike Evie's, it doesn't seem to evoke any of the previous characters, and this allows Lydia to stand out as unique from her design alone, being a great first impression going into this section. Playing as Lydia now, we are introduced to the new generator mechanic. Large generators power all of the electricity in a room, and thus can be turned off to leave enemies confused, and they will dispatch one of their goons to go and fix it, making it an effective lure. For this small mission chain to take advantage of the time period by utilising electricity into the mission design is a very ambitious and, although a derivative of the Watch Dogs hacking mechanic that had similar results, this is still innovation for the franchise. After Lydia eliminates the Templars, we hear a radio broadcast from Templars hiding out in the Tower of London. We are also introduced to the historical figure Winston Churchill, years before his role as Prime Minister.
Never forget the laws of common courtesy. Arms down. We appear to have been following the same trail, Miss Frye.
I got here first.
Indeed, you are to be commended. I fear, however, that we have not wholly rooted out evil in this vicinity.
There's another radio.
Accompany me, if you would be so kind.
Together, Lydia and Churchill form an alliance, not only to take down the Templars, but thanks to some fun quips between the two, we learn that Lydia is in service of women's rights.
If you could put your considerable talents to good use at Tower Bridge, you would have the thanks of a brave but beleaguered nation.
I would settle for the right to vote.
And alongside accompanying imagery, it paints a picture of Lydia that catches us well up to speed with her motivation, which is very well conveyed. This sets us off nicely into the open world, a new explorable Tower Bridge, only built in 1886, therefore not being featured in the main game or the Jack the Ripper expansion, due to only Whitechapel being available in that DLC, probably so they didn't have to redesign it. Once again reinforcing the confidence the developers had regarding the Helix Rift missions. We have a new protagonist, open area, uniquely designed for this section, and completely new mechanics and assets. It is incredibly commendable. After a few small stealth encounters that use the generator mechanic further, Lydia discovers that the Templar broadcast is coming from the northern tower, and after climbing the tower she successfully takes out the Templars operating there. Upon disabling the transmission, Churchill informs her that an enemy blimp has gotten through to London.
One of the bloody blimps has broken through. Not to worry. I have a contingency plan.
So to cap off this detour with a big finale, Lydia mounts an anti-aircraft gun and takes down the blimp to help save London, once again giving us a fun new mechanic as we shoot down enemy planes. This will sometimes be interrupted by Templars hopping on board your boat, which will break up the flow of gameplay. After taking out the blimp, we get this interaction.
Heartwarming sight, Miss Frye.
Your remarkably armed boat deserves a share of recognition.
One of my experimental projects when I was Lord of the Admiralty. I haven't always been a man of shadows.
And I suppose this victory will thrust you back into the limelight.
We may have struck a blow against the enemy, but London is still riddled with German agents. Currently, there's a new group, unlike anything I've seen before. Theirs is a fanatical, almost religious fervor.
And you believe I'm the woman to flush them out?
Indeed. I dare not approach Mr. Asquith without firmer evidence, but I believe they pose an immediate threat. If you concede to this, I give you my word that once I've battled my way back into Parliament, I shall see if something can't be done about your request. As you are aware, a vote can be far more lethal than a bullet or a blade.
While the storyline isn't concluded just yet, this is the narrative conclusion to this side quest, with Churchill helping Lydia to get her cause for women's rights heard in Parliament, whilst Lydia continues to use her more secretive approach to rid London of further Templar spies. This opens up the world with new side content to complete as a checklist to unlock the final cutscene, and it'll provide you with maybe another 45 minutes of content before reporting back to Churchill. I like the lore building here that shows that the Rooks gang was still very much around after the Jack the Ripper expansion, and now work for Churchill to patrol the streets like a secret police force. Now with the location of the spy HQ, Lydia infiltrates the area and once again eliminates the Templars, alongside their leader, revealed to be a sage. In the Assassin's Creed lore, a sage is the husband of Juno, attempting to revive her in the modern day, represented with two different eye colours, and so it became sort of a part of their checklist to kill him along the way. Although never really developed as his own character outside of his appearance in Black Flag, the Sage was featured heavily in AC4, Unity, and now Syndicate. Although this is his smallest role yet, which may have shown an attempt to diminish the idea going forward, but it's still another good reason to validate this section as an important part of the game. The developments stop here with a final cutscene in which Winston Churchill congratulates you with a pat on the back, and Lydia rushes off to the next mission.
The ringleader is dead, as are his bizarre disciples.
Is that it then?
Well, there is still a war on.
Then we both have our own affairs to attend to.
Know that you have done a great service to your country. Thank you.
In terms of the setting, World War I London was incredibly well realised, not differing too much from the main game, but with inclusions like soldiers and vehicles scattering the streets alongside the electrical generators and AA gun segment. It just reinforces the world they were building, and how the City of London changed over time. Lydia herself possesses the same rope launcher used by Jacob and Evie, which adds to the lore by showing that the technology was still used during the First World War. And Lydia choosing to use a kukri is also a great way of showing Henry Green's influence on the Assassins continuing. It's little things like this that really flesh out the world of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and makes this corner of the Assassin's Creed universe feel the most explored and developed. In my opinion, this section of Syndicate would have been a really fantastic follow-up to the Jack the Ripper DLC, skipping forward 30 years once again to tell this story. Knowing how the Jack the Ripper DLC ends, I feel like a follow-up exploring Evie's darker side could have given us a lot of potential, and what better way to do it than through her granddaughter, who was trained by Evie in the canon. It does make me wonder if this Helix Rift was planned to be its own DLC expansion, before being cancelled to produce Jack the Ripper instead. With a 2-year time skip before Origins came out, there was certainly time for another DLC to come out in between. However, this never came to fruition, but thankfully this World War I segment was still included, as a great sign for what the Helix missions could have been. Admittedly, there isn't much to go on in terms of story or character development, but Lydia does come across as a likeable, if a bit one-note protagonist, which could have easily been adapted with more screen time, and considering the story content here is at most half an hour long, too drastic a shift in her personality would have been unrealistic. It reminds me a lot of the Arkham stories from Arkham Knight, a short 20-minute burst that comes packed with lore but doesn't work to expand on it, leaving you feeling like the potential was never reached. However, I do think where Lydia's story differs is that the concept of the Helix missions was still being explored, and for such a massive innovation to be made in only the second attempt is very impressive. Unfortunately, as we know, after Syndicate underperformed, and due to the backlash still reeling from Unity's launch, the series went on a small break, to re-pivot their direction and follow a different path. In my opinion, taking the wrong feedback and becoming more focused on the fantasy style of the Witcher games, which unfortunately led to the Helix rifts also being left behind, making them unique to the Unity and Syndicate era of ESC. However, it seems the success of the earlier attempts either remained dormant in the minds of the developers or upon reflection has been seen as a success, as Assassin's Creed Infinity looks to take this idea and combine multiple periods and characters in one game, alongside the rumour of another Assassin's Creed game in development that will use 3 locations set in different eras to tell one combined story. You can see where the ideas Syndicate presents with Lydia Frye will have a lasting legacy going forward. When asking the question, who is Lydia Frye, what I'm really asking is what does Lydia Frye mean for the franchise going forward? And I think what Lydia Frye represents is the future of the Helix Rift missions becoming their own entire game. Unity teased this idea at the beginning of its campaign of multiple games and settings being inside one standalone title, and that seems to be exactly what we're getting with Assassin's Creed Infinity and also some of the games that have been leaked recently. What do you think of Lydia Frye, not only as a character, because admittedly there isn't much there, but as a representation of the franchise going forward? Do you think the Helix Rifts were a good idea, and are you looking forward to seeing them expanded into their own standalone game with Assassin's Creed Infinity? Outside of the microtransactions and the obvious heavy monetization that we're going to be getting, what do you think of just the basic concept of it? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.